The world was changing in the 7th century. Empires that once seemed eternal, the Romans, the Persians, were fracturing, and out of the shifting sands of Arabia, a new faith emerged, one that would transform half the globe. In the bustling trading town of Mecca, the Prophet Muhammad began to preach the message of Islam, that there was one God, and that all believers were part of a single community. His words challenged tribal divisions, and offered a vision of unity grounded in faith and justice. By the time of his death in 632 CE, Muhammad had united much of Arabia. But the movement he began did not stop there. Under the leadership of the caliphs, his successors, Islam spread rapidly. Within a century, its reach stretched across the Middle East into North Africa, and even to the Iberian Peninsula of Europe. This expansion was not simply about armies on the march, it was about culture, trade, and ideas. The Quran became the heart of the new civilization, guiding law, society, and daily life. Mosques rose not only as places of worship, but as centers of learning and community. And in cities like Damascus, Baghdad, and Cordoba, Islamic scholars preserved ancient knowledge while pushing forward new discoveries in mathematics, medicine, astronomy, and philosophy. The world of Islam was becoming a hub of global exchange, bridging Asia, Africa, and Europe with vibrant networks of trade and scholarship. Meanwhile, in Western Europe, the story was very different. The collapse of Rome had left behind a fractured world of small kingdoms, scattered communities, and constant warfare. Order was fragile, and protection often came not from emperors, but from local lords. It was here that a new warrior class began to rise: the knights. These mounted warriors were the backbone of the feudal system, sworn to defend their lord's lands in exchange for land or privilege. They fought on horseback, armored and armed with lance and sword, symbols of both violence and prestige. Yet knights were more than mercenaries. Over time they became tied to ideals, however imperfectly lived out, of loyalty, honor, and service. The code of chivalry began to take shape, blending martial skill with Christian morality. Knights were expected not only to fight, but to defend the weak, uphold justice, and honor God. Europe was not yet a unified power. Its kingdoms were small, its structures fragile, but the knightly class gave medieval Europe a new identity, one built on warfare, loyalty, and a shared warrior culture. Thus, by the 8th and 9th centuries, two great forces were rising: Islamic civilization, expansive and innovative, and Christian Europe, forging its knightly aristocracy. Though separated by culture and faith, their worlds were not entirely apart. Trade connected them, knowledge flowed across borders, and eventually, their destinies collided in conflict. The Crusades would follow in centuries to come. But in this formative period, the 7th through 9th centuries, both were laying the foundations of what medieval civilization would become. Islam brought a unifying faith, a network of trade, and an intellectual legacy that would inspire the Renaissance centuries later. Europe forged the knightly ideal, one that shaped politics, warfare, and culture well into the modern age. Two paths, two civilizations, one medieval world, bound by contrasts and connections.